Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the science behind a superfood that's been around for thousands of years. We're talking about ghee.
All right, let's jump right in. And you know what? We're not going to start with the ancient history, as tempting as that is. Nope, we're starting with a really practical problem, one that basically drives the entire modern ghee industry. And that problem is all about efficiency. So what's the biggest hurdle when you're making ghee? You might think it's getting that perfect nutty flavor or that beautiful texture. But actually, the #1 challenge, especially for producers, is way more basic. It's simply this: how much of that valuable milk fat can you actually get out of your starting ingredients and into the final jar? And this right here shows you just how far things have come. I mean, look at that difference. With the traditional, or desi methods, you could lose up to 20% of the fat. That's a huge amount. But now, with modern industrial techniques, they've practically perfected it, getting those recovery numbers way up there. 98%. That's the magic number. That's the goal, getting nearly every single drop of that liquid gold from the starting material into the jar. But let's back up a second. What exactly is this stuff we're trying so hard to capture?
Yeah, before we can get into how they get to that 98%, we've got to make sure we're all on the same page about what makes ghee, ghee.
Okay, so at its core, ghee is pure clarified milk fat. What does clarified mean? It just means it's been simmered very gently to get rid of almost all the water and the milk solids. And that purification step, that's the secret sauce. It's what makes ghee super stable and gives it that amazing shelf life, without even needing to be in the fridge. And this is a really big deal: purity. By definition, pure ghee has to be free of a bunch of stuff. There are some pretty strict rules to make sure that when you buy ghee, you're getting just that: clarified milk fat. No preservatives, no weird oils, none of that. All right, so now that we know what it is, let's get back to that big question. How did we get from losing 20% of the fat to achieving 98% efficiency? Well, it's a story of innovation, really, told through 5 different ways of making ghee.
And this table lays it all out perfectly. You can see the whole journey here. On one end, you've got the indigenous or dacier method. Super flavorful, really nutty, but you see that fat recovery is lower. Then you move all the way to the other end to the continuous method. That's the workhorse of the modern industry. It's all about consistency and getting every last drop of fat.
Let's zoom in on one of these methods, the pre-stratification method. This one's really clever and a big favorite in many dairies. Think about a salad vinaigrette, how the oil and vinegar separate. They do the same thing here. They melt the butter and just let it sit. It separates into layers. Then they drain off the watery stuff at the bottom before they do the final heating. It's a simple step, but it saves a ton of energy and gives you a cleaner, better ghee.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the science of efficiency. But making great ghee isn't just a numbers game. It's also an art. And for a lot of people who really love ghee, the true artistry is all about getting that perfect texture.
And when I say texture, I mean granulation, that slightly grainy feel. Now, you might think grainy sounds bad, but in the world of ghee, it's the exact opposite. It's not a flaw at all. It's a sign of quality, of authenticity. It's what people look for.
So, what's the secret to getting it? Well, it's all in how you cool it down. It really is a game of patience. If you cool the ghee slowly, nice and gentle over a few hours, you give the fat crystals time to form these beautiful large grains. That's what gives you that perfect texture. But if you try to rush it, if you cool it down too fast, you end up with a greasy, oily mess, because those crystals never had a chance to form properly.
Okay, so let's say we've done it. We've made the perfect batch of ghee. We got a great yield, and the texture is spot on. Awesome. Now what? How do we keep it that way?
Because let's be honest, a lot can go wrong. If it tastes burnt or smoky, well, you probably overheated it. If it's greasy, we already know what happened. It was cooled too quickly. And if it tastes rancid, that's a dead giveaway that it's been exposed to air or light. Every single one of these defects is like a clue, telling you exactly what went wrong somewhere along the line.
And that brings us to packaging, which is way more important than you might think. Light and oxygen are basically the arch-enemies of fresh ghee. They cause it to go bad through oxidation. So the packaging needs to be like a fortress. That's why you so often see ghee in things like tin cans or dark glass bottles. It's all about building a barrier to protect what's inside.
But of course, sometimes the threat to quality isn't an accident. Sometimes it's deliberate. And the #1 villain in the ghee world is something called vanospity.
It's a hydrogenated vegetable oil that's way cheaper, but it looks and feels a lot like ghee, making it a really common adulterant.
So, how do you catch the bad guys? Well, luckily, science has a really elegant solution for this. Regulators in India came up with this genius idea. They made it a law that all vanaspati has to have a tiny bit of sesame oil added to it. Why? Because there's a simple chemical test, the Boda-1 test, that can spot that sesame oil instantly. So if your ghee tests positive, boom, you know it's been tampered with. It's brilliant.
And that kind of brings us full circle. We've seen this incredible journey, this push from science to get that efficiency number up to 98%. But it leaves you with a really interesting question, doesn't it? As we chase that industrial perfection, what do we gain? And maybe, what do we lose from that original, less efficient method? What it really shows us is that every single spoonful of ghee you eat is this amazing blend of science, tradition, and pure artistry.